Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you are new. I'm so excited for this video as I will be showing you some affordable and very cute homemade gifts that people will actually like. If you need some inspiration or some last minute ideas, please keep watching. My first project is a homemade sugar body scrub. I'm reusing an old candle dish, but you could also use an old jar or something similar. Then I'm using brown sugar, runny honey, essential oil, coconut oil and vegetable oil. You could make this with just 3 ingredients, which is sugar, oil and essential oil, or your favorite shower gel if you don't have essential oil. I'm starting by heating up the existing label with a hairdryer, which makes it easier to remove it and allows it to peel off very easily and doesn't leave any glue marks. Then I'm adding brown sugar into the jar. It might be a better idea to add it to a bowl first, as it can get quite messy otherwise. I learned it the hard way. I'm adding some runny honey, coconut oil, and I also added vegetable oil, which I forgot to show you in this video, but it's a really important ingredient as it helps you to mix your scrub easily. Then I'm adding an essential oil of my choice. I used amber and patchouli, which smells amazing, but you can use any essential oil you have or that you think will work very well in a scrub. And now I'm mixing everything together, and this can take a few minutes to mix all the ingredients evenly. At this stage I had forgotten to add my vegetable oil, which made the mixing much harder and was actually a very good arm workout. So please don't forget to add your vegetable oil. Once it's all mixed, it will look something like this. Unless you use regular sugar, then it will probably look a little bit lighter. So that was quite easy to make, and I decided to add some final touches on the jar to make it look a little bit nicer and a bit more festive. I'm using twine string and just wrapping it around the jar a few times and tying a knot at the front. You can use any craft string that you have or that you think will look nice. Once it's secured, I decided to add half a slice of an orange. I had this left over from some other DIYs, but you could easily make those yourself by baking them in the oven. I made a little hole in the orange, fed the string through and tied a knot at the front. I left it quite loose as I'm adding some dried flowers and tightening it afterwards. I then cut the string shorter to make it look a little bit better. How easy was that? And the final result is just amazing. I actually tried a little bit of that scrub myself and my hands felt so soft. I love it. And for my next project, I'm making a trinket dish. I'm using air dry clay, rolling pin, Stanley knife, brushes and some leftover wooden cutlery just for the purpose of smoothing the clay out. I'm starting by opening my air dry clay. I got this from Hobbycraft, but you could get this on Amazon or your local craft store. This cost me about £5. I'm using some thread to cut the air dry clay. That's an easy way to cut it without getting any tools dirty. I'm now placing it on a baking sheet as I didn't want to get my table dirty, and just using my rolling pin to start flattening the clay. I'm rolling it in different directions as it will loosen up and it will be easier to work with. I wanted to make my trinket dish with some natural texture, so I decided to add some ground coffee to add that texture, but this was my preference, and you don't have to do this step if you don't want to. I'm now just working that coffee into my clay. I'm just rolling it and using my hands to work it in. It took me a couple of minutes and it smelled so good. I love the smell of fresh coffee. Once it was all worked in, this is how it looked like. And now I started to shape my dish. I wanted to have an asymmetrical shape. I kept shaping it with my hands and used the brush and water to smooth out any inconsistencies. I used another piece of clay to create a flat bottom for my trinket dish, so it would be stable once placed on a surface. I'm rolling it with my hands and creating round shaped piece and just smoothing it out with the brush and water. I'm now using a Stanley knife to score that piece, and I'm also doing the same on my main piece. and creating a round shape where I will be placing the flat bottom. This helps for the two separate pieces to stick together better. I'm now using a brush and water to smooth some inconsistencies out. Now I'm using my wooden knife just to bond the two pieces together, and this can take a little bit of time just to smooth everything together and make sure that two separate pieces have stuck together nicely. As this is the bottom of my dish, I didn't mind it being a little bit imperfect, as it can take time to get a very nice and smooth consistency. I'm now flipping my dish around and I'm placing pieces of scrunched up foil at the bottom to create a shape for my trinket dish, as I wanted it to dry in this shape. It can take about 2 days to fully dry, as this is an air dry clay and doesn't need to be baked in the oven. It will actually crack if you bake it in the oven. I'm going in with the brush and water to smooth some more inconsistencies out, but again, I didn't want this dish to be perfect and wanted it to have a very natural look, so I didn't work on it for too long. After about 48 hours, my dish looked like this, and I wanted to give it a little bit of color. You could of course use some acrylic paint, simply leave it as it is, or use some varnish to give it a little bit of shine. I made a weak coffee to give it a natural looking finish. I'm adding it on with my paintbrush. After painting it, I left it to dry and then gave it another 2 coats until I was happy with the color of it. What I really liked was that you could start seeing the ground coffee in the dish during this stage, and it gave my dish a little bit of character. Once it was all dry, I then gave it a coat of satin varnish. This stage is optional, as you can leave it as it is if that's your preference, or you could use a gloss varnish. This depends on your desired end result. Once coated, leave it to dry. And this is the final look. What do you guys think? I love how it turned out, and as I said before, I didn't want it to be perfectly smooth, and I got the texture I wanted. Moving on to my next project. I am so excited to show you how to make a candle at home. Again, I'm using an old candle dish which also had a lid. I'm heating up the label and the lid with my hairdryer, as it helps to remove it without leaving any glue marks, and it's just so effortless. This lid also had some writing on top of it, so I used a little bit of sanding paper to sand it all off. That took a couple of minutes, but at the end you couldn't even tell that there was anything on it before. I ordered a candle wick kit from Amazon, which is linked below, which was only about £4 and came with double-sided sticky tape, candle wicks and a small candle wick holder. I'm now sticking the double-sided sticky tape in the center of my dish and removing the tape from the top of it. Once that's done, I'm adding my candle wick on top of it and making sure it's fully stuck to it. I also ordered some candle wax pellets from Amazon. If you don't have this, you could also melt an unused candle that you have lying around at home. I used about 2 cups of candle wax pellets and melted them in a pan on a very low heat while stirring it with a spoon. Once it was all melted, I then poured it into my dish, almost all the way to the top, but I left a little gap. Now I'm using a scented oil of my choice. This is warm suede and amber scent. I got this from my local Sainsbury's, but you can get scented oils in many online or physical stores. This was about £3. For my candle size, I needed about 40 drops of scented oil to make sure that it smells very nice while it's burning. Then I mixed it with a wooden spoon. I'm now placing my metal candle wick holder on top. If you don't have a candle wick holder, you can use anything such as pencils or cutlery to keep it in place and stop the candle wick from moving while it's setting. I then left my candle for a couple of hours and it was all set, and this is how it looked like. But I wanted to add some decorations to make it look a little bit more special. I added a thin layer of melted wax to add some dried fruit, flowers and spices on my candle. I then added a few more drops of scented oil. I then started placing some dried flowers on the side of my candle in a way that I thought it looked nice. I placed a star anise at the bottom of my dried flowers and added some more little dried decorations. This stage is completely optional, but I thought it will give my candle more edge and a special touch. This is what it looked like when it was setting. Once the candle was fully set, I then cut my candle wick to a desired length. I also had a lid for this candle, and at this stage you could leave it as it is, but I wanted to add some more decorations to the lid. I decided to use dried orange slice and some flowers. I added a double-sided sticky tape on top of my orange and then just stuck my dried flowers on top of it. Then I also placed another piece of double-sided sticky tape underneath my orange and on the top of the lid to make sure that my orange sticks to the top. Alternatively, you could use a glue gun. And I love the final look so much. I'm planning to give this as a present to someone, but honestly I like it so much that I would love to keep it, but maybe I'll make another one. And now I will show you my final project, which is something that I've never made before, and I am very excited to show you. For this project I will be using plain white candles, acrylic paint and a small brush. I'm starting by doing little strokes on my candle to create a shape of a flower. I'm doing 5 petals per flower. I'm intentionally leaving the center blank, as later I will be adding a different color in the middle. I had watched people paint on candles before and it looks very easy, but it can be a bit more tricky than it looks unless you're an artist or you're just a natural. If you have a little bit of patience though, the effort is definitely worth the final result. If you've messed up a little bit while you're painting, you can easily clean it off with a tissue and start again, but only while the paint is still wet. I'm just continuing the same process of adding more flowers and adding them in different places on my candle. Once you get to the top of your candle, it gets a little bit more difficult as you don't want to touch the paint that you've just painted. Once I've finished all my flowers, I let it dry for about 20 minutes and then it was ready to be painted again. I started adding the center of the flower in a darker shade of brown as I thought that would look very pretty. I will show you the final result shortly, but in the meantime I will show you another design that I did. For my second candle, I'm using a dark green acrylic paint. I wanted to create a design that looks like mini leaves. To paint this, I'm doing 3 strokes to create a leaf design. My technique here was to do 1 stroke at the top, 1 on the left and 1 on the right. I'm just repeating that all around the candle until it's filled out and has achieved my desired look. I got some of my inspiration for these candles on Pinterest. I love to go on Pinterest for some design ideas and just to start my creative mind going. You can draw anything you like on yours, but remember, it looks a little bit easier than it actually is, so it might take a little bit of practice until it looks as good as you wanted it to look. And this is the final look of both of my candles, and I actually had so much fun that I created another design with daisies. If you are gifting it to someone, I will show you how I wrap my candles to make it look a little bit more special and ready for gifting. For this I'm using twine string again, and I think it didn't need any more decorations as there is beauty in simplicity. And I absolutely love how this turned out. Please let me know in comments which one of these gifts you would love to receive. I have planned to use some of these as my Christmas gifts to some of my closest people, and the best part about this is how easy and affordable it is to make all of these projects. Personally, I love handmade gifts as a lot more thought goes into these than simply buying a present. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see similar content in the future, please like and subscribe as this will really help my channel, and I will see you in my next video.